Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to week 4 in CE 165, Food and Beverage Cost Control. Chef Gregory and I welcome you to another fine live session. And needless to say, we're very, very proud of all of you so far for your performance, which has been outstanding. Many of you are doing excellent, and Chef Gregory and I could not be happier. And we ask that you keep up the hard work for the next half of this course. We're officially in the second half, so keep it going. You have to remember, at the end of the day, this is where a chef's livelihood matters in these numbers. So you're not going to hear anything that's really going to be any more important than what we're talking about here in this class. So definitely learn it and understand it. Week 3, everybody. How did everybody like week 3? Do we have any thumbs up? Yeah, Gabriel did. James, you liked it. Mary Lou, you did it.
And the cheat sheet.
You made a cheat sheet? Hey, that's all right.
The one you gave us, yeah.
Yeah.
The help.
Yeah. No, please, absolutely use those.
Thank you.
There are a lot of people in the industry that still utilize those sheets. So they're there. Take advantage of them and use them. Even when you do get into industry, it's going to ensure that you're making the right mathematical equations. You have to remember, you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, in a lot of facilities. And if your equations aren't right, and if you're guessing or trying to remember, 1% or a couple percentage points off, that can be very, very expensive in the long run. So it's not really something to take lightly. It's something to take very, very seriously. How's everybody doing with their vocabulary so far as what we're talking about? Everybody has pretty good? Does everybody feel comfortable? Yeah, when we're talking about food cost and labor cost and beverage cost and all that other kind of good stuff? Okay, we're going to get into some new vocabulary tonight. What was that? Did somebody say something? No?
I was just getting ready to say, I understand like food cost and, beverage cost, but when you start getting into things like people start asking you about P&Ls and, profit margins, I think we talked, about that. And that's when things kind of you're like, okay, I think, it's this, but just in a different term, or, just kind of, those are big words, I guess,
We're going to add some more definition to that stuff this afternoon here in this class. Nothing is really going to ensure you employment in this industry. Nothing more will ensure you employment when you sit down at an interview and you can competently talk about this information with your employer. Because your employer is going to be, hey, can this guy make money for me? Right? Can he manage my money for me? And that's exactly what we're working on here. So these terms that we're bringing up, make sure that you master them and you understand them. It's extremely important. Any feedback regarding the week 3 quiz? Anybody have anything to share about that? James, how do you like it?
It made sense to me. Food costs, labor costs, all those things, it just makes sense, especially after class last week. Problems with it at all.
Cool. What about you, Senta? How'd you like the week 3 quiz? Let me help you get unmuted here. There you go. Go ahead, Senta. There you go.
It was kind of difficult at first until I just kept trying and I finally, zoomed in and got, kind of got it a little.
Okay.
Not much, but.
Okay. Don't get discouraged. And I think you're one of many. And when I say don't get discouraged, you have to understand this is a whole process of memorization. And sometimes it takes a couple of times to have to go through it until you get a good grip on these numbers. So if you're one of those people that can read the class material and master it one time, God bless you. I couldn't, I can't. And so if you're like me and you have to go back and do it a couple of times, to get a good mastery of the subject, then that's what you need to do, and that's quite normal. So keep going at it. James, what was your question?
It wasn't really a question, but I felt like it might help other people because it did help me.
Uh-huh.
I had some questions about, food costs, and then I asked my boss, and he said food costs, he's like, define it in 4 words. 4 words.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, because I was trying to overthink it, and he was like, it's cost divided by sales.
Kind of, sort of, so, yeah.
Yeah.
And that
Right.
made sense, and it stuck 4 words, and then
Yeah.
I applied that to the labor part of it as well.
Exactly. And then if somebody asks you your beverage cost, you're using the same math as you just said.
Exactly. So that was a great answer by your boss. And that's fantastic. Don't overthink these things. And you find that you get yourself starting to think about how to pull these numbers and create these numbers and all these. Keep it simple, Sam. It's going to make life so much easier for you in the long run. And then how's everybody's learning so far, I take it? Yeah, so everybody's learning a little bit as we go into the second part of this class. Awesome. Chef Gregory, what kind of feedback do you have for week 3?
Lots of great grades this week. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for turning in on time. Please do remember, I will send out a helpful hint sheet for this week tomorrow. Also tomorrow, in a separate email, you guys are going to get a video from, it's going to be Chef Rachel in the video. You guys will get sent that. It's going to be kind of like a condensed bonus session of just other helpful hints. So you'll get the documented version, and then you'll also get sent out a video too of her going through some slides and some practice problems. So that way everybody has that for the weekend and next week.
Awesome. Great. And then as we approach week 6, you mentioned some great hints. I think it was in week 2 that you brought up. Maybe now is a good time to remind everybody of that.
Yes. So week 6 for everybody, it's going to be a quiz. It's going to be multiple choice, and it's going to be everything we covered in weeks 1 through 5. So it's a little bit of everything. So I am going to send out an email to all of you. It's going to have every helpful hint sheet that I sent you, all of them again. And it'll also have a link to your quiz. And then I'll make sure, I was speaking to Rachel today. She plans on making a video of some type for week 6 for just helpful hints also.
Yes. Awesome. So make sure you have to keep going back and reviewing this information. It's a good idea to spend 5 minutes, go back, reread week 1, then go back, take a look at week 2, week 3, etc. Keep everything fresh and relevant in your mind. It'll really help you once we get into week 6. As a reminder, speaking of the quiz, you can take the quiz as many times as needed. Only the highest score sticks. So if you take it once and you don't do well, do not give up hope. You can go back and take it one more time. Remember that the answers are scrambled, so try not to photograph the information, because it's not going to be the same way that you bring it up the next time. So make sure. Everyone needs to remember, we discussed this in week 1. We're going to bring it up here again in week 4. There is free math tutoring available. Should any of you need some assistance, a little bit of extra support, Escoffier does provide that for you. Her name is Francie, and she is absolutely awesome when it comes to doing the tutoring. And all you have to do is you have to take a look on the top of our class page. And you will see where it says free tutoring. I believe that information is going to be moving to the right-hand side of the class page soon. So if it's not at the top, just take a look on the right and click on that red line that says click here to schedule your free tutoring session. And boom, you're good to go. She's fantastic to work with, and she will help you out. As we head into week 4, everybody needs to remember this information that we're going to share here in week 4, 5, and 6 is really going to put you ahead of the average chef out there in industry, and it's going to give you a real competitive edge. If you remember, I think Chef Gregory back in week 1 was talking about his responsibilities with the profit loss statement, how that related to his bonuses and all this other stuff. That money's available for you out there, but now we just need to learn how to work these numbers so we can all achieve those goals. Let's take a look at our week 4 class page. to make sure that we're all together here. We all hopefully are watching this video at the top, produced here in Tucson, Arizona. And then the research materials this week. It seems as though there's quite a bit in this class, and yes, you need to read and read them twice, all of them. It's fantastic information. There's a couple of videos that are in here. One is on costing, food costing, absolutely fantastic. And the other one is in relation to what we're working on this week as far as APs and EPs, and we're going to get into those definitions here in just a few minutes. I highly recommend you spend some time going through this information more than once. It'll be very, very beneficial to you. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance here at our Week 4 live session. And then, Chef Gregory, we have a bonus session coming up next Tuesday. That's correct?
Yep, so Tuesday at 5, Chef Tyson and Chef Jonathan will be in this week, and they're going to review everything that we're going to review today in Week 4. And then it's just kind of an open forum. So if you say, you can just ask them whatever you'd like about Week 4, and they'll happily show you and answer it. And then they also go through the helpful hint sheet again, and they go through the formulas again too.
Oh, fantastic. How's the attendance been there?
It's been pretty good, sir. This past week was a little bit lower, but it hovers around 45 to 50 per class.
Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic. Take advantage of that tool, and the more information you have regarding this subject, the more effective you're going to be when you get into industry. And once you get up into upper level managerial positions, sous chef, executive sous chef, and executive chef in the kitchen, when you're sitting in an interview and you get questioned on something like this and you respond confidently, you're in first place for that position. So take advantage of it by all means. We do have a discussion board this week talking about most important budget considerations. Make sure that you have your initial post turned in by Saturday, and then make sure that you respond to 2 other students no later than Tuesday night at 11:59 p.m. Very, very critical. This Saturday, get your discussion forum in to get your points. And then our quiz this week is on yields, right down here at the bottom, and we're going to get into that quite heavily here over the next few minutes. Moving on to our show this evening. So to
Chef,
speak.
before you start, Carrie has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Carrie.
Can we go back to that discussion board real quick? I just had a question on that. Can you give us an example of the types of things you're looking for? Are we looking for things like the yield percentage, or are we looking for some? Am I way off base?
You're a little bit off base.
Okay.
And let me bring this up to over here. Let me bring it up on the screen. And what we're talking about is the most important consideration when it comes to making a food service budget, right? So all food service operations have a budget, and usually we'll do a 12-month budget. We start on those sometime around August, September, or October. We develop that budget for the forthcoming year. And we all have major considerations. We've already talked about a lot of the items that are in the budget, such as food cost, labor cost, beverage costs. We've talked about revenues so far. What is the most important thing that you think when it comes to zeroing in on that budget? Does that make sense to you, Carrie?
Yes, that's what I needed.
Okay, good. Let's go back to our little presentation here. For the next couple of minutes, we're going to be talking about some of the vocabulary that we're going to be dealing with here this week in the class. One of the big things that we need to realize before we get going here is this week, instead of working with simple equations, we're doing multiple step equations. In other words, you're going to have to answer one question in order to answer the second question, which will help you answer the third question in order to come up with your final answer. So there's not one quick, easy, 4 times 5 equals 20. You might have to do 4 times 5 equals 20 divided by 2 times 3 to get the final answer. And we're going to walk you through all that. So be conscientious of that. And then one big thing that everyone needs to focus on this week with the quiz is there's a lot of verbiage in there, and there's a lot of side information that are in the questions. You need to read the questions at least twice to have a thorough understanding of what is being asked. I highly recommend that you have a sheet of paper and a pencil, and you write down what is being asked of you for each question. Is that good information, Chef Gregory?
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah. So it's critical that you have a very strong understanding of the actual question itself. And let's take a look at some of our vocabulary here this week that we're going to be working with, kind of help better define. In the restaurant industry, you hear the term inventory quite a bit, and a lot of people are kind of curious. Is the inventory how many people are in your restaurant or how many chairs? And generally, we're referring to the items that you've purchased that are necessary to operate. Food inventory would consist of all the things that we need to cook with and prepare our dishes with. It's critical. Beverage inventory traditionally consists of primarily alcohol items. A lot of beverages that we have in the restaurant industry, such as juices and sodas, are traditionally a part of the food cost, not part of the beverage cost. So alcohol generally kind of zeroes in on beverage cost. And then we have paper inventory, cleaning inventory, that type of stuff. In the inventory, we go by several different names traditionally. You'll hear it called stock, product, or supplies. But the primary thing that we're talking about is inventory in here. The way we develop our inventory within industry is we use a lot of different information on how to put stuff on our shelves. Because if you purchase too much, hi Shannon, if you purchase too much, you're going to have food that spoils and goes in the garbage. If you don't purchase enough, you're going to not be able to prepare your foods and not have enough food for your dishes. So we use historical information, we use our sales reports, and we use current trends, and we also take a look at what's going on in the area to help us understand what we need to purchase. Because inventory is money on your shelf. It's exactly like your bank account. There's no difference. So you need to manage your inventory just like you manage your money. And it takes work. It takes work to manage the money on your shelf. It's not as easy as you think it is. So you do have to walk through there and check it out and make sure that your product's rotated and properly cared for. So moving on to the next thing, we traditionally do a physical inventory at the end of each month. Unless you are in a facility that is having high food cost problems or pilferage problems, stealing problems, you might find you're doing it every couple of weeks, but we have a tendency to do it at the end of each month is when we'll do inventory. And what that helps us determine is how much money we have spent on food within the last 30 days. Because we do not just use our purchases, because that would be a false number. So the way we figure out actual food costs in a restaurant, if we take inventory at the end of March and that number comes up to be $4,000, right? So we have $4,000 worth of product when we start the month of April. In the month of April, if we spend $8,000 on food, and then we'll do an inventory at the end of April, and we find that we only have $5,150 in inventory left, well, that will help us determine the fact that we had an ending inventory of $4,000. Then we purchased $8,000 in product. So we ending inventory plus purchases minus our ending inventory at the end of the month will tell us exactly how much money we spent on food for that last 30 days. And that is our actual food cost. Does anybody have any questions on that? So that is the actual way that we develop the money of how much we spent. Gabriel, what's your question?
I was just going to make a comment that I didn't do inventory today.
I guess that kind of proves my point. It is the 31st, right?
Last day of the month, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've worked for a couple of different companies, and you know, a lot of people do things differently. I worked for a company that I was a bar manager, and for this specific company, if you made the order, you could not pick up the order, and if you picked up the order, you could not stock the order, and if you stocked the order, you could not do the inventory.
Pilferage is a huge issue in the restaurant industry. Yeah. So we take a lot of preventive measures to prevent any of that thing from happening. So just to go back and cover that real quick. So we start with our ending inventory that was done at the end of the last month, and then we add our purchases to that, and then we subtract our end of month inventory, which will give us our cost of food sold. Something that is kind of confusing to some people. Sometimes we're talking about whole numbers, and then sometimes we're talking about percentages. And P&Ls, profit loss statements, at the end of the month are traditionally generated in both types of numbers. The reason for that is the whole number will tell us, give us a dollar figure of how much we spent. So it kind of helps you compare to last month. But the percentage number helps us understand how that particular item fits into the remainder of the budget. If I am budgeted for a 32% food cost and it comes in at 34%, that helps me understand I have to pull 2 percentage points from somewhere else to make my P&L work. So it kind of gives me a different perspective of the number. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. So once you get into the restaurant industry, you're going to be seeing two different types of numbers. One will be the whole, and then the other one will be the percentage. Let's take a look at some of our vocabulary that we're working with in addition to the inventory. You're going to see AP quite a bit in this week's assignment, and you'll also hear it quite a bit in industry. AP stands for as purchased, and that is basically the way we buy the product, right? The price of the product purchased before processing. So, for example, when you buy an onion, you know, you buy a 50-pound bag of onions, but you don't sell a 50-pound bag of onions, right? Because you've got to peel the skin, you have to remove the core, and so there's two different prices, and you have to be able to compensate for the stuff that you do not use. You pay 100% for that product, and if you only use 80% of it, where's that 20% going? And that is one of the biggest issues and the biggest problems that restaurateurs have in the industry. And I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I was working at a place, and they buy bacon for $5 a pound, and they put 2 ounces on the salad. So I looked at their costing sheets, and they took $5 a pound, and they divided it by 16, which told them how much it cost per ounce. But wait, when they cooked it, they lost 30% to moisture and to grease that went down the drain. So how do you compensate for that? And that's what this week's class is all about. So AP is our first number, our first vocabulary word this week. And that stands for as purchased. That's exactly what you pay for the product when it comes in the back door. Yield or yield percentage is how much of that actual product is usable. For example, if you buy a chicken, right, and you pay $10 for that chicken, but you only end up with $7, you lose 30% of that chicken is unusable because it's cartilage and skin and these other parts that you're not going to use, then you only get a 70% yield out of that chicken, right? So that's what we're talking about when it comes to yield percentage. If you have an onion, you clean the skin and then you remove the core, and there's only 80% of the onion that is left, then the yield percentage is 80%. Does that make sense? Everybody on board so far? Yeah? All right, let's move on to our next term. And then our third term on this page, which is let's go back to yield percentage, I'm sorry. To figure out the yield percentage, right? So you have your as purchased weight, right, at 10 pounds, and you divide it by your yield of 7 pounds, right? Your yield percentage is going to be 70%. And then you go to EP is the last critical term for this week, and that stands for edible portion price. How much does that food on your plate actually cost after you get rid of the scraps and the trimmings and everything else? So that is the cost of the actual product. If you pay $1 per pound for chicken and your yield is only 50%, you will need to charge $2 to compensate for the waste in that chicken. So you're not losing money. So it's as purchase price divided by your yield percentage equals your edible portion price. Do we have any questions so far? Everybody good?
Tiffany has a question, sir, and Ashley, sir.
Tiffany, what's up?
Yes, Chef. So I'm looking at the infographic that you have there, and it's looking like the AP/yield or Y essentially is the same thing. Is that kind of correct?
This is when you're working with whole. This is when you're working with whole numbers, and this will give you your percentage, right? So your yield is always going to be smaller than your AP, right? And so if you take your AP price, right, of $10 and you divide it by your yield percentage of 70%, that will give you your edible portion price. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. What I'm asking is the edible portion price and the yield percentage essentially the same thing?
No, they're two totally different things. The yield percentage is how much of the product is usable that you can deal with, and then the edible portion price is the price of that product.
Is the price of that. Okay, okay. Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. James, what's up?
So I had a question. You know, when you said like the chicken, right, and you only use 70% of it, but like, what happens if you use that 30%, like the bones and carcass, for a stock for one of your soups? How do you incorporate that yield into it?
That's a great question. You can take that additional 30% and work that into another recipe for a cost, but that 70% yield still remains the same for your chicken breast. Okay, good. Ashley.
I saw we had tutoring that we can ask for on one of the sessions, but even after class, like now, can we stay on to ask questions too, to just from like the previous thing, just to get some help, extra help?
Sure. I know Chef Gregory has another class, and I have another class after this as well.
Yeah, but Ashley, that's what the bonus session's there for you also on Tuesdays.
I know I try to get there, but I just have some extra stuff, and I'm trying to figure out ways I can incorporate that. That's all.
Oh, understood. Understood. They do tape it if it helps you, and then they post it on the class pages so you can watch it. And when they're going through the formulas like we do in class, you can pause it, see what they did, write it down for yourself, take it in, unpause it, watch the second step, write it down, take it in.
I didn't know they were recorded. I'll look at it again. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
And then don't forget, Ashley, you can go to the top of the class page and schedule a tutoring session with Francie, and she's absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure she's willing to work with the time that you're available, so that'll help you out too.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? We're going to finish up our last page here before we turn it over to Chef Gregory. And on the food cost, James, was talking about food costs before the class started. We have two primary different meanings of food cost in the restaurant industry, and they both mean how much does the food cost at the end of the day. But at the week 1 and week 2, we were talking about food cost in reference to a recipe, right? And when we're talking about that, that's how much does the food cost that goes on the plate. How much does the food cost that we use in our recipes? That is one term of food cost. However, another term for food cost would be the food cost for the actual facility as a whole. How much food was utilized in that month, period. So don't get confused when you get into industry. If they pull you into the office and they say, hey, the food cost is a little bit high, don't look at them and say, what dish? You know, they're talking about the facility as a whole that can, and so those are the two differences. Theoretically, and it doesn't happen very often, but theoretically, when you cost out your menu at 32%, theoretically, your restaurant's food cost should come in at 32%. But there's always a small form of discrepancy there, either under or over, because of price fluctuations or because of yields or because of waste or whatever the case may be. So there are a couple of different ways to look at that. Any questions about that? Are we good to move forward? Chef Gregory.
All right, sir. All right, sir.
I love that NASCAR guy. Who is that?
Kyle Busch.
Yeah? Oh, that's awesome, man.
I wouldn't have anybody else up on the screen. All right, everybody. So this is going to be your helpful hint sheet for this week. I do want to show it to everybody, and then we're going to go through the problems. So everything highlighted is what they're asking you. These will be your questions. So this is the exact question off of the quiz. And then this will tell you how to get there verbally and of course with the math. So this will be your helpful hint sheet, and I will send this out tomorrow morning. Now we have some good news. The good news is this is your quiz for this week. It is all multiple choice. However, you'll see when we're going down through the questions, some of them are choice of two, A or B. So when we're going through the slides, I'll point those out, but of course it's just the fresh onions or the pre-cooked in this case. So you'll just have to come up with just what that answer is. Same thing here, question 4. Question 5, you actually don't need to do any math at all. This is just a critical thinking. What do you think that the advantage of using fresh onions would be? But that's for you guys to decide. So we are going to go over the slides. So this one, when you guys see this question, this is going to be one of the multiple choice ones. Which onions have less waste? It's either going to be the pre-cooked onions or the fresh onions, and that'll be your two choices. For slide number 3, this is when we were talking about what is the advantage. So this is just a critical thinking one. What do you guys think would be the advantage of using a fresh onion in this case?
I would say quality.
Flavor.
Yep, quality is one of the choices. That is a choice of 3, so you guys can decide what you personally think is best, and then that you would answer on your quiz. All right, so when you guys see this one. So it is asking us what are her total sales for each brisket, assuming she sells all of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the end weight by our menu price per pound. So can somebody tell me, you can take a second to read this, can somebody tell me what my end weight is? If nobody gets it, if nobody understands, just let me know.
Is it 6.5 pounds?
Yes, sir. Can you please tell me why? Where did you get that from?
You said the end weight?
Yes, sir.
It states once they are done smoking, they weigh 6.5 pounds each.
Perfect. So this is our end weight. Carol's already cooked the brisket. This is what they weigh at the end. So thank you very much for that. But we're going to have 6.5. Now we're going to multiply. So can somebody please tell me what my menu price is?
$16.95.
Yep. Can you tell me where and how you got that?
The Carol owns a barbecue company that sells brisket for $16.95 per pound.
$16.95 per pound, exactly. So now we have our end weight, which was the 6.5. She's done cooking the briskets, and we have our selling price, $16.95. So we do our 6.5 multiplied by our $16.95. So when I'm looking for my answer, which answer would I look for?
110.
110.18.
Yep, exactly. If you guys got the rounding, perfect.
And everybody understands what the yield was, right? When we were talking about they purchased 10.3 pounds, it yielded 6.95 pounds.
Yep. So they started with the 10, and then they ended with the 6.5. All right. Now we have the same question we had before. Of course, the numbers are different, but this time, what is her contribution margin from each brisket, assuming she sells all of it? So if you remember from last week, we did talk about contribution margins. It was like our brownie skillet. It was our pad thai. We were talking about the contribution margins. So this right here, this is how you get your final answer. Okay? Now, we look at this first. So to get our final answer, we need her total sales, and we need the total AP cost, the total as purchase cost. So first thing we need to do, we know we need her total sales. So we're going to do the end weight times the menu price, just like we did the last time, and that's going to give us our total sales. So can somebody please tell me what my end weight is?
6.8 pounds.
Thank you. Yep, 6.8. Once Carol's done with her smoking, once they're done smoking, they weigh 6.8. Okay? Now, can somebody please tell me my menu price?
$14.36.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
$97.60.
60 what?
5.
Yes. Okay, so now I need my total AP cost. So my as purchased price times my start weight. So can anybody tell me on here at the top what my as purchased price is?
$472.
Exactly, right here. As purchased price of $472. Now, can somebody tell me my start weight? What did the briskets weigh before Carol smoked them?
11.4.
Okay, that equals
53.81.
yep, 53.81. Yes. Okay. So let's stop for a second. We have our total sales. We have our total AP cost. So we're going to take our total sales of 97.65. Sorry about that. 0.65. We're going to subtract 53.81. We are going to get
43.84.
43.84. So what bubble am I going to click on my quiz? What would I click on? 43.84.
Yes.
Great. All right. Okay, so now we're getting into when Chef was talking about yield percentage. So it's asking us, what is the yield percentage of the briskets after Carol is done smoking them? So for our yield percentage, we need the end weight divided by the start weight. Can somebody tell me my end weight, please?
7.64.
7.64. Now we're going to divide. Can somebody tell me my start weight, please?
12.8.
Exactly. Yep. She buys the brisket for AP of $3.44 per pound, and they weigh 12.8. That is our start weight. Thank you. All right. Okay. So what bubble am I going to click?
0.60.
Yep, exactly. 0.60. And we're also talking about yield percentage, right? So
Yes.
0.60 equals
Okay, 60%.
60%. Okay. All right. Now, you guys are going to see this, okay? So we're going to look at this first before we do anything. What is it asking us? Just right here. What is the edible portion price for the pre-cooked onions? So all we're going to look at is right here. Charmian found a pre-cooked onion that was $3.18 per pound as purchased with 100% yield. He wants to save money, but isn't sure if that's a better deal than cooking the fresh onions himself. So what he's buying, if you guys could imagine, he needs caramelized onions. So he buys a bag, a cryovac bag of caramelized onions. So all he has to do is open it, heat it up, 100% done. So that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about pre-cooked onions, 100% yield. He doesn't waste anything after he buys this. So to get our edible portion price, we need to do our as purchased divided by our yield percent. So can somebody please tell me on just this one here what my as purchased price is?
318.
Yes, thank you very much. So we have 3.18. We are going to divide. What is my yield percentage?
It's 100%. So
It is. You're right. Thank you. So 100%. So we need to divide by 1.00. 100%. What does that equal?
the same thing, 318.
Exactly. And now why? Why is this the exact same thing? Because he has 100%. So when you see 100%, when we're talking about a yield, he didn't waste anything. He just sliced open the bag, dumped it out. He used all of that 1 pound of caramelized onions. So now the next one is going to talk about, this is going to talk about the fresh onions after caramelizing. After he trims them, peels them, chops them up, cooks them down after caramelizing. So this is what we need here. He currently pays a as purchase price of $2.51 per pound for fresh onions, but his yield is 69% after peeling and cooking the onions. So this one, we're going to do the same thing. Can somebody please tell me my as purchase price for this right here is fresh onions?
$2.51.
2.51. Now, can somebody please tell me his yield percentage for his fresh onions?
69%.
69%. Thank you. So 69% is a decimal, 0.69. We have 2.51 divided by 0.69.
You get 3.64.
64. Yes, it is. 3.64. Thank you for the rounding. So his edible portion price for his caramelized onions is $3.64. So when we're talking about a comparison, when he's like, he wants to save the money but isn't sure that this is a better deal than cooking the onions himself, what do you guys think would be a better deal?
Pre-cooked.
Pre-cooked.
Exactly. One, it's less per pound. Number two, he or the staff doesn't have to peel them, doesn't have to cook them down, because as we all know, caramelized onions is a process. It takes a while. So if he asked us, and he asked us this exact question, we would tell him we recommend using the pre-cooked onions.
Saves time and money.
That'll save time and money. Exactly. Thank you. That's a really great way to say it. Let me switch my little scripts here. Okay. So now it's asking us, what is the edible portion price for Carol's brisket? So that, to get our final answer, we need that equation. Okay. Now, what do we notice about this equation? The as purchased price we have up here, it tells us. However, it doesn't tell us our yield percent. That's okay though, because we know our yield percent is going to be our end weight divided by our start weight. So we have to do this first. So can somebody please tell me what my end weight is in this problem?
7.56.
7.56. Yep, thank you. Can somebody please tell me the start weight?
12.2.
12.2. Yep. All right. So we have 7.56 divided by 12.2. Okay. Now, wait, on this one, we're looking for the dollar amount. So we're not going to round yet. But one thing we can do is, this is obviously a very, very long number. If we take the first 5 spots behind the decimal, it'll equal the same exact thing as if we took all of these numbers together. This is generated, so your answer may not actually have this big of a equation. But it's a really good thing now that ours does. So we're going to take 0.1967.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, could somebody tell me my as purchased price?
$5.20.
It is. Thank you. Now we're going to divide it. We're going to divide it by our yield percentage, but we didn't round or do anything with it yet because we're looking for a dollar amount. And that equals divided by 0.61967.
Yeah, 8 point, yeah.
Yep. So what will my answer be that I'd click my little bubble on?
8.3. Either is it, or how far we go past the decimal? Like, is it 8.4, 8.39?
So we're looking for a dollar amount.
Okay, so it's $8.39.
And 39 cents. Yep. Because we're looking.
Love that movie, Coco.
You want to watch it?
Let's watch Shrek the Musical. This? No, Shrek the Musical.
If you guys could mute yourself, please. I can't see all the chat and stuff for you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. This one, it's going to ask you, compare the EP or edible portion cost for each onion, and the lower one, the lower edible portion price, is the answer. This is choice of 2 on here. So we already know up here that we're looking at 100% yield. So all you guys have to do is find out your edible portion price for this, and then there's choice of 2. It'll say which one is the lower, the fresh onions or the caramelized onions. All right. So this is our last one. So it does look a little more involved, which I'm not going to lie, a little bit is. However, you guys just blew through every single one of these answers. So what is it asking us first? Our food cost percent on the brisket. That's what we want to find. So we want to find this right here, food cost percent. Okay. Now, what do we need to get that? We need the edible portion price, and we need the selling price. So, to get the edible portion price, we need the AP divided by the yield percent. So to get our yield percent, we're going to divide the end weight by the start weight. So what is our end weight?
6.4 pounds.
It is. And what is our start weight?
11.1.
Okay.
So we want the percentage, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So would it be like 58?
It would be. You're absolutely right. Thank you. Yep. We're looking for a percentage. So we're looking for 58% or 0.58. Okay. So now we have this answer. So now we can do our edible portion. So we need our as purchased price, and then we have our yield percentage is 58. So what is our as purchased price?
$2.38 per pound.
It is $2.38 divided by our yield percentage, which we already had done, 58.
And here now we're looking for the dollar amount, right?
We are. Divided by
410.
Nice, 410. Okay, this is a dollar amount. Now, our final answer. So we have our edible portion price, which we just did, our 410. And we know our selling price because it is up here. So we take our edible portion price, dividing it by our selling price, which is the $19.52.
21%.
Say it loudly. I heard you say it.
21%.
It is.
So when we do the 21%, is this that thing that we're talking about if it's higher than 30 and all of this when we were talking about the last week? Like if it's more money or less money, it have to be 30% of your, oh gosh.
Okay. Yep. I know what you're talking about. So when we were talking last week, we were talking about 30% food cost.
Right.
So yeah, okay. So now, so all of your menu items, if they're 30% or less, your total food cost would be 30% or less, right? So if we had the brisket, if we had Carol's brisket on here, and our food cost for her brisket was 21%, but our food cost goal, we were budgeted for 30, just our brisket is 9% under. So now let's just say we had a crab cake. And the crab cake was 32%. And we also had the brisket. So we have one that's a little bit over and we have one that's under. When Chef was talking about having that balancing act, when like you write and have a menu, that would be part of your balancing act.
You cannot cost every single menu item at the exact same percentage. There has to be a balance of your target. And what we'll do in industry is we'll add up the dollar figure of the cost of all of our dishes, and then we'll add up the dollar figure of our sale price of all of those dishes, and that should equal 32%, right? Some of the dishes in there might be 28, some might be 34, some might be 30, but at the total of the entire menu should come to 32%.
Okay, and that's when we was in the other class doing the apples and oranges, the pears, and trying to compare which one would be better to take out and move and fix the menu, right?
Correct. And when Chef Gregory or myself, we say 30% or we say 32%, it's largely theoretical. It depends on your facility. I think when you were in a B&I type facility, you probably had a completely different food cost than I was running at a resort.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine was 60%.
Right.
Which sounds really bad, but that was the setup, the contract that we had, that the bank would pay a subsidy. They'd pay to compensate for the food cost being so high.
Mm-hmm. And at a resorts I've traditionally run anywhere between 26 and 28% food cost. So when we say 32, that's just an industry average. Your facility might be a little bit different. Be open-minded when you're first getting into a facility to listen to what they have to say and the reasons why.
And this is a great thing to ask on your externship.
Yeah.
You guys will all have a different experience, but you will have either an executive chef, a food and beverage director, a general manager, possibly the owner, depending on what you choose to do. Uh-huh. This is part of that conversation. Ask them.
Absolutely.
Hey, chef, what is your food cost?
Right.
They'll say it's 28%. Oh, that's great. At the end of the week or at the end of the month, would you mind sitting down with me and just explaining the P&L statement to me, just to show me the highlighted bullet points?
I'm gonna be glad to do it. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, but that externship is the perfect time. And it may not be the executive chef, but if they have a food and beverage director and a general manager, depending on how the responsibilities are, the food and beverage director, you might ask them. Yeah,
absolutely. They'll be glad, because you know what? The more you know, the more that you can help manage it. And going back to the average food cost, you might want to tell, like a steakhouse, like a Morton's or something like that, they might run anywhere between a 45 and 50% food cost, but that's where the contribution to margin comes into play. Because, a 45% food cost on a $75 steak is much more contribution to margin than a $10 hamburger at 32%, if you understand what I'm saying. Right? One puts $6 in, the other one contributes, $40 to the contribution to margin. So,
and that's the difference if you want to run a business or you want to be in a restaurant. So that's why I'm trying to see how you understand that food cost. But if you're saying when you do your internship, you go and you ask these things. So once you're learning it, you can whether say I want to start my own to get the differences and understanding if I'm selling burgers or steaks. Or if I'm, I understand what you're saying now. That's why I was trying to figure out how do we handle the money-wise.
Right, or whether you end up managing it as an executive chef or whatever, you have to have a good comprehension of these numbers. I mentioned at the beginning of the class that we talk a lot about this in percentages. And the reason is each month you're going to get your P&L and it'll list your food cost at 32%, your other, and you can put all those together just like a piece of a puzzle. And revenues are 100%. And if you add in all of your costs, they should not exceed 100%. And so that's where us as managers come into play. Everybody does understand contribution to margin, the difference between the cost of the food and the sale price, right? That's where all that goes. Does anybody have any questions about AP, about yield or yield percentage? Or EP? Everybody has a good comprehension on that? What's that? Ashley?
I just got a question. Just basic, just like simple, just what we're talking about. So let's say you get a chicken for $5.50. Okay, that may be 4 pounds. So and you want to do chicken salad, and you know that when you cook one chicken and you do everything, that chicken may yield 10 servings.
Right.
Okay, so like, how does that work? Like, I'm just trying to figure that out. How do you get how much you should sell it for?
There's a couple of different ways you can go about that. If you pay, if you bought a 4-pound chicken for $20, right? And that's only going to yield 10 servings, right? So you do 4 times 5, right? $4 a pound times 5 pounds. That equals $20, right? And you only yield 10 servings out of that chicken. You divide 20 by 10, and that'll give you an answer of $2 per serving.
Okay, thank you.
So that's a different way of looking at it. If you buy a whole salmon for $80, right, and you only yield 20 usable portions out of that salmon, then you'll just divide the 80 by 20, and that'll tell you how much you paid for each piece. That's just a reverse perspective. That's not included in this thing, but a lot of times the industry will do it that way.
Okay.
Just to make it more simple. Don't forget your test this week is 2 pages. So it's a total of 10 questions. It can be taken as many times as necessary. Only the highest number will stick. Do not forget to take advantage of Francie the tutor. If you don't understand this, pick up the phone, call me. We can schedule a Zoom session. I'll walk you through it. Chef Gregory is also very glad to help you out because we're here to help you succeed. Any questions? Thoughts, concerns? Stay warm, everybody. Have a great week. Take care.